For a long time, I thought dogs became attached to one person for very simple reasons. I assumed the dog simply preferred whoever fed them most often, spent the most time with them, or handled most of the training every day. And honestly, that explanation seems believable at first. If a dog constantly follows one person around the house while barely paying attention to everyone else, it feels natural to assume the relationship is mostly built around routine and rewards. But over time, I started noticing situations that completely challenged that idea. Some dogs became deeply attached to people who barely trained them at all, while ignoring others who handled almost every daily responsibility. That contradiction stayed in my mind because it did not fully make sense. If attachment was mostly about food, routines, and obedience, why did some dogs emotionally choose certain humans so strongly over others? Then I started paying attention to something I had completely underestimated before. I stopped focusing only on what humans were doing physically and started watching how dogs emotionally responded around different people instead. And honestly, that changed the way I understand dog attachment completely. I realized many dogs are not simply following routines or rewards, many are following emotional safety, predictability, calmness, and trust. Most people assume dogs attach themselves to one person because of attention alone. While attention absolutely matters, many dogs also respond deeply to emotional energy and nervous system stability. Dogs constantly observe body language, tone shifts, emotional consistency, tension, routines, frustration, confidence, and social atmosphere around humans. They are incredibly emotionally observant animals. One thing I completely misunderstood early on was how sensitive many dogs are to emotional energy. Some people naturally create calmness around dogs without even realizing it. Calm people often move predictably, communicate clearly, and create emotional stability simply through their presence. Many sensitive dogs relax deeply around this kind of energy. Other people unintentionally create emotional pressure. Loud interaction, unpredictable behavior, nervous energy, frustration, emotional inconsistency, or chaotic movement can make sensitive dogs feel emotionally alert instead of emotionally safe. This is one reason dogs sometimes become intensely attached to one person inside the same household. The dog may simply feel emotionally calmer and more regulated around that particular individual. One thing that surprised me most was how often anxious dogs become attached to emotionally calm humans specifically. Nervous dogs frequently seem drawn toward people who create emotional stability instead of overstimulation. This becomes especially obvious during stressful situations. Dogs often move toward the person who feels emotionally safest when they feel uncertain or overwhelmed. That realization completely changed how I viewed attachment behavior. I stopped seeing it as simple favoritism and started seeing it more as emotional trust and nervous system regulation. One major misconception people have is believing dogs only bond deeply through training or discipline. Training absolutely strengthens relationships, but emotional safety often strengthens attachment even more powerfully. Dogs frequently form their strongest bonds with humans who consistently make life feel calmer, safer, and emotionally understandable over time. Emotional trust develops through repeated experiences. Another thing many owners underestimate is how strongly dogs respond to emotional predictability. Dogs generally relax around people whose behavior feels emotionally steady and easy to understand. This is why some dogs become emotionally cautious around unpredictable individuals. Loud emotional swings, frustration, chaotic energy, inconsistent interaction, or tension can slowly create emotional uncertainty. Interestingly, dogs often notice these emotional differences before humans do. Dogs constantly monitor emotional atmosphere because emotional safety matters enormously to them instinctively. Another thing I misunderstood was assuming dogs always follow the leader in a dominant sense. In reality, many dogs follow emotional regulation more than emotional control. This becomes especially obvious in sensitive dogs. These dogs often become intensely attached to humans who feel emotionally grounding and safe. One thing many owners notice is that dogs frequently follow calm, quiet people constantly. Calm individuals often create less emotional pressure, which allows dogs to fully relax around them. Meanwhile, highly stimulating individuals sometimes unintentionally overwhelm sensitive dogs emotionally. Constant excitement, unpredictable interaction, loud energy, or nervous tension can keep certain dogs emotionally unsettled. This is where many people misunderstand attachment behavior completely. Dogs are not always following excitement, many are following emotional regulation instead. Another huge factor is emotional trust built through consistency over time. Dogs remember emotional experiences far more deeply than many people realize. Humans who remain calm during stressful situations often build enormous emotional trust with dogs. Dogs begin associating those people with safety during difficult moments. This becomes especially important for anxious or reactive dogs. Many emotionally overwhelmed dogs become deeply bonded to the people who help them feel emotionally secure during stress. One thing that changed my perspective massively was watching how differently dogs behave around emotionally calm humans. Their body language softens, movement slows, eye contact improves, and nervous system tension visibly decreases. That difference can completely change how a dog behaves outwardly. Dogs that seem anxious or hyper alert around one person sometimes look deeply relaxed around another. At first, I thought this was coincidence. But the more dogs I observed, the more obvious the pattern became repeatedly. Another thing dogs seem deeply drawn toward is emotional understanding. Dogs often bond strongly with humans who notice emotional shifts without immediately escalating pressure or frustration. This is one reason patient owners often build powerful bonds with difficult dogs. Calm understanding creates emotional safety many sensitive dogs desperately need. One thing many owners accidentally do is focus heavily on controlling behavior while overlooking emotional connection entirely. Dogs may obey commands beautifully while still feeling emotionally disconnected underneath. Connection often develops through very simple moments. Calm presence, relaxed routines, patient communication, predictable interaction, and emotional steadiness often matter more than dramatic training sessions. Another thing I eventually realized is that dogs constantly observe how humans handle stress themselves. Dogs notice frustration during walks, tension inside homes, anxiety around strangers, and emotional reactions to difficult situations immediately. This is one reason emotionally calm people often help dogs feel calmer too. Dogs frequently mirror the emotional atmosphere surrounding them daily. One major moment that changed my perspective happened after watching a nervous rescue dog ignore almost everyone in a room except one quiet older woman sitting nearby. The dog slowly walked toward her, leaned against her silently, and relaxed more deeply than it had around anyone else all day. What shocked me most was that the woman never tried to call the dog or force interaction. The dog simply chose the person who felt emotionally safest. That moment completely changed how I understand attachment now. I realized many dogs are not simply looking for attention. Many are looking for emotional regulation and safety instead. Another thing dogs seem to need deeply is emotional clarity. Dogs generally trust people more when interaction feels emotionally predictable and understandable over time. This is why emotionally inconsistent behavior often damages trust slowly. Dogs may still obey outwardly while quietly becoming more emotionally cautious underneath. One thing many people misunderstand is that emotionally secure dogs still enjoy excitement, stimulation, and play. Emotional safety does not mean constant calmness. It means the dog feels safe enough internally to fully relax again once stimulation ends. Nervous systems recover much faster when emotional trust exists strongly. Another huge lesson for me was understanding why some dogs become Velcro dogs. Many emotionally sensitive dogs stay physically close to the humans who regulate their nervous systems most effectively. This becomes especially obvious in anxious dogs. Proximity itself often feels emotionally stabilizing around trusted people. One thing dogs constantly teach humans is that emotional energy matters enormously. Dogs often understand emotional atmosphere far more clearly than humans understand it themselves. That does not mean dogs think exactly like humans emotionally. But they are incredibly sensitive to emotional consistency, calmness, tension, predictability, and social energy. Another thing I eventually realized is that dogs often trust calmness more than control. Humans who feel emotionally grounded generally create more emotional safety than humans constantly trying to dominate situations emotionally. This is why calm leadership works so powerfully with dogs. Calmness creates nervous system safety while emotional instability creates uncertainty. One major mindset shift for me was understanding that dogs are not randomly choosing favorite people. Many are responding to emotional experiences that make them feel safest, calmest, and emotionally regulated internally. That perspective changes everything. Suddenly attachment behavior becomes much deeper than simple preference or excitement. Of course, practical things still matter too. Feeding, walking, routines, playtime, training, and time together absolutely influence bonding strongly. But emotional atmosphere often shapes attachment far more deeply than many people realize. Dogs generally bond hardest with the humans who make life feel emotionally safe and understandable. The more I understood this, the more I realized I had been completely wrong about why some dogs become attached to one person. Many are not simply choosing the person with the most treats or attention. Many are quietly choosing the person who makes their nervous system feel safest. And honestly, realizing that completely changed the way I understand dog attachment altogether.